Today on Science vs. Cinema, we're exploring the science of Black Panther. In this segment, we take a look at the isolationist policies of Wakanda.
It's a third world country. Textiles, shepherds, cool outfits, all front. Explorers have searched for it. Called it El Dorado. But it was in Africa the whole time.
So if any societies successfully isolated themselves like the Wakandans, there are estimated to be about 100 tribes around the world with limited to no contact with global civilization. Take the Sentinelese people from the North Sentinel Islands near India. A half dozen attempts have been made to establish contact since 1880, and all have been met with a hail of arrows or threats of violence. They seem to be hunter-gatherers with no known signs of agriculture. But that isn't a great analogy for Wakanda, a country whose people are aware of the modern world, but choose not to reveal their secrets.
To keep vibranium safe, the Wakandans vowed to hide in plain sight, keeping the truth of their power from the outside world.
To see if there were any parallels with isolationist societies, I talked to Professor Luke Roberts from the UCSB History Department. Is there a historical parallel to Wakanda?
Yeah, somewhat. I think Tokugawa Japan, in the period between about the 1630s up until 1850s, was pretty isolated from the world. They had very controlled foreign relations. Mostly what they're worried about is Christianization, the importation of Christianity. This really leads to a lot of the limiting laws that were made in the 1630s. So no Japanese could travel abroad legally.
What would happen to you if you tried to go to Japan?
You'd promptly be thrown in jail and sent to Nagasaki and repatriated.
You let the refugees in, they bring their problems with them. And then Wakanda is like everywhere else.
So what does Tokugawa mean?
Tokugawa is a family name of the shoguns who were the supreme samurai and the supreme ruler, sort of a lord of about a quarter of Japan.
And when the time of men came, 5 tribes settled on it and called it Wakanda.
The samurai are both hereditary warriors, an army, and they're also the bureaucrats who run the government.
I am loyal to that throne, no matter who sits upon it.
In the movie, Wakanda tries to keep itself secret.
Yeah.
I don't know, is there any parallel here with Japan?
They would not allow foreign vessels to approach. Even when there were shipwrecks, they would make the people stay on the vessel if it could still float. And if the vessel couldn't float, they would then put them in walled compounds. They try to restrict their contact with Japanese.
This man is a foreign intelligence operative. How do we justify bringing him into our borders? He took a bullet for me.
So was their policy successful?
Even though it was largely cut off from extensive trade and interaction with the outside world, Tokugawa Japan really flourished. For a while, Edo was the biggest city in the world. They changed the name to Tokyo in the Meiji period. It's a city of 1 million people in 1700, and you could have put London, Paris, and Rome all together in there at that time. And literacy flourished. They had a wonderful publishing industry. And for over 200 years, the Tokugawa regime wasn't involved in any wars at all. And for that time period in world history, that's really rare. And that, in some ways, is like Wakanda.
Wakanda has survived for so long by fighting when only absolutely necessary.
They're master of what they want to let in and what they want to let out for a long time, and that's very similar to Tokugawa Japan.
So do you have any lessons for Wakanda here?
No, I'm not sure I would let go of a good thing.
As a scientist, I would think free trade and all of this ideas being exchanged is better for your society. You don't think
well,
so?
there are good things and bad things. Frankly, there are many parts of Tokugawa Japan that are very repressive to the people inside and limiting in the sciences, for example. And once they become a nation state, science progresses in Japan much better. But you also get the downsides. They get involved in many wars.
Evacuate the city. Engage all defenses. And get this man a shield.
I think this is paralleling Wakanda because, you know, like they all of a sudden they open up and then they get attacked in this new Avengers movie. So maybe they should have consulted a historian before.
We'll see what happens.
But Wakanda doesn't have cultural isolation so much as technological secrecy. That exists today in the form of classified technology. Nuclear weapons, top secret aircraft, and spy satellites show it's possible for countries to develop advanced technologies and keep them mostly secret from the rest of the world. So isolation and technological secrecy are difficult, but not impossible. I'm glad Black Panther addressed the complexities of this head-on with Killmonger, an antagonist who argues that they're being too isolationist.
It's about 2 billion people all over the world that looks like us, but their lives are a lot harder. Wakanda has the tools to liberate them all.
Isaac Newton once said, "If I have seen further, it's by standing on the shoulders of the giants." He meant that science moves forward by ideas building on each other. Tycho's observations of the stars led to Kepler's laws, which Newton used to decode gravity. Then Einstein built on top of that. From our giants' perspective, we now understand the stars, and we've even built rocket ships that have taken us to the moon. While I disagree with Killmonger's methods, I have a lot of sympathy for his perspective that technology should be shared, and I'm glad he was able to have influence on Wakanda's future.
We let the fear of our discovery stop us from doing what is right. No more.
Man, what the hell is that?
If you like this segment, check out the rest on Black Panther and subscribe to Science vs. Cinema. I'm an astrophysics professor, but I'm also a huge film geek. On this show, we take a look at the science in movies. We celebrate when they get it right.
Something that could actually happen.
And we school them when they get it wrong. See what happens when we introduce some Martian wind. This is Science vs. Cinema.